Today, we'll be recapping the 2013 movie Homefront. But before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The movie kicks off with a biker gang called the Outcasts approaching one of their clubhouses. While the DEA monitors them, the gang enters a building where they are operating a meth lab. The gang is led by Danny T, who approaches Phil Broker, one of their members, to organize a drug transport. Out of nowhere, the DEA raids the building, arresting several gang members. The operations chief asks for a status update on their undercover agent, who turns out to be Phil Broker. Realizing that Phil is an informant, Danny escapes with his son. Phil aids an injured agent, but as they leave, the building explodes. Danny flees by car, and Phil pursues him on a motorcycle. Phil slides off the bike, shoots at Danny's car, causing it to explode. Phil apprehends Danny and shoots Jojo in the leg to disarm him. However, Jojo, despite orders to surrender, deliberately provokes a fatal confrontation, getting himself killed. Phil is devastated as Danny blames him for his son's death. After closing this final case, Phil resigns from the force. Fast forward 2 years, and Phil's daughter Maddie is bullied at school by a boy named Teddy Klum. Maddie stands up for herself, breaking Teddy's nose. Now living in a small Louisiana town, Phil is called to the school. He arrives to find Teddy being treated by a nurse while his parents demand justice. Phil meets Maddie's teacher, Susan Hatch, and Maddie recounts what happened. While proud of Maddie for defending herself, Phil feels guilty for teaching her to fight. Susan and Phil share a moment, revealing that Maddie's mother had recently passed away, which led to their move to Louisiana so Maddie could pursue horse riding. Teddy's mother, Cassie Bowden, sends her husband Jimmy to confront Phil. However, Phil effortlessly subdues Jimmy, humiliating him in front of his family. Though the sheriff intervenes, he reassures Phil that he's not in any trouble. Furious, Cassie decides to escalate matters and asks her brother Gator, a local drug dealer, for help. Gator runs a meth operation, and after intimidating some local gangsters, agrees to assist Cassie with confronting Phil. Meanwhile, Phil spends time with Maddie and attends a school meeting where Susan suggests that Phil apologize to Teddy's family to ease tensions. Phil visits Jimmy at his workplace to apologize. Jimmy suggests he should also apologize to Cassie and Teddy. Phil agrees, but while leaving, Gator's men provoke him at a gas station, leading to a fight in which Phil quickly dispatches them. Gator later learns about the altercation. Determined to uncover dirt on Phil, Gator breaks into Phil's house while he and Maddie are out. Gator discovers Phil's past as an undercover agent and his role in Jojo's death. He steals information, intending to use it against Phil. Later, Phil notices his car tire has been slashed and Maddie's favorite doll damaged, realizing someone has invaded their home. Gator offers the stolen information about Phil to the Outcasts in exchange for distribution rights in their territory. Despite warnings that the Outcasts are not to be trusted, Gator moves forward with his plan. Meanwhile, Phil starts connecting the dots, realizing that Gator is behind the break-in, and confronts Jimmy, suspecting his involvement. Jimmy denies it. Gator meets with the Outcasts' leader, Cyrus, who has been hunting for Phil. The deal between Gator and Cyrus becomes tense as Cyrus demands Phil's location. At a party, Maddie invites Teddy, and the day passes peacefully. Later, Gator warns Cassie to steer clear of Phil, but she insists on receiving drugs from him. Gator refuses, telling her to clean up her act. Phil contacts his former DEA boss to gather intel on Gator. He learns about a woman named Marie, who has connections to Danny, and requests her photo. Phil visits a cafe Tito directed him to, where he spots Gator. When Phil approaches, Gator instantly accuses him of beating Jimmy and blames Maddie for injuring Teddy. Phil demands that Gator keep his mouth shut about his past and accuses him of vandalizing his car and damaging Maddie's doll. He warns Gator that if anyone trespasses on his property again, he will respond lethally. Gator denies the accusations. As Phil leaves, he receives Marie's photo and identifies her as the woman associated with Gator.
Phil then heads to Gator's workshop, disguised as a boat repair shop. Using his DEA expertise, Phil uncovers meth production supplies and sets up an electronic trap that will cause an explosion when the lights are turned on. As he leaves, he notices Maddie's missing cat, but one of Gator's men holds him at gunpoint. Phil swiftly disarms the man, but before he can escape, he's attacked by the thug from the gas station. The gang tortures Phil, taunting him and threatening Maddie. Enraged, Phil fights back, freeing himself and overpowering the thugs. After defeating them, he retrieves Maddie's cat and leaves. Meanwhile, Cyrus and the Outcasts arrive at Gator's place, demanding Phil's whereabouts. Gator reluctantly gives them directions to Phil's home, choosing not to join them to avoid direct involvement. As the gang makes their way to Phil's house, Tito arrives to help with the horses. The gangsters sneak onto the property, and Tito hears strange noises. As he investigates the stables, Tito is attacked but manages to stab his assailant with a garden fork. Hearing gunfire, Phil hurries to protect Maddie. He hides her in the basement, telling her to stay put while he handles the attackers. Armed and ready, Phil engages the gang in an intense battle. One of the gang members spots Maddie, forcing her to flee into the woods. As Phil fights off the intruders, Marie calls Gator, informing him that things have spiraled out of control. One of the gang members catches up to Maddie, but Phil arrives just in time, shooting the pursuer. Phil then faces off against Cyrus while Maddie runs to the shore and encounters Marie. As the fight between Phil and Cyrus escalates, Marie tries to convince Maddie to leave with her. Phil gains the upper hand in the fight, but Marie kidnaps Maddie and escapes by boat. Helpless, Phil watches them leave. When the police arrive, Phil reports the kidnapping to the sheriff. He finds Tito wounded and calls for paramedics. Suddenly, they receive a call from Maddie, who provides clues about her location, allowing the police to trace her phone. Marie and Maddie arrive at Gator's place, and Maddie's description helps Phil pinpoint the location. Gator, enraged by Marie's decision to bring Maddie to his hideout, prepares to kill her. Cassie and Jimmy show up, having heard about the shootings and Maddie's disappearance. Cassie becomes suspicious when she hears Maddie's voice inside and accidentally triggers the bomb trap Phil had set, causing a massive explosion that destroys Gator's meth lab.
In the ensuing chaos, Cassie tries to protect Maddie, but Gator, consumed with rage, shoots Cassie and takes Maddie as he attempts to flee. Phil arrives just in time to witness the aftermath and pursues Gator in a high-speed chase. Despite police roadblocks, Gator manages to escape across a bridge. Phil crashes his car but survives and continues the chase on foot. As Gator prepares to shoot Phil, Maddie distracts him by calling out to her father. Using the distraction, Phil overpowers Gator, beating him mercilessly. However, instead of killing Gator, Phil spares his life, telling him that Maddie is the reason he's still alive. Paramedics arrive to treat Cassie, and Phil and Maddie leave the scene together. Later, Phil visits Danny in prison, delivering a final warning. That's how the movie ends.